الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. It is a pleasure to be here with the Malayali community. And to be honest, today was the first day I pronounced this word, Malayali. When Brother Ziyad approached me, one of the organizers in the Al-Ahwazi, I was in the masjid and he told me, we want you to give a reminder. And I was like, I'm pleased, my pleasure. I'm from India, I said yes. And I know a couple of Urdu words, so I said, let me say it. And then he said, no, we don't speak Urdu. This is not our language. It was a big disappointment, but I was sure. I told him that you're AMIA from Tamil Nadu. And he said, no, we're not from Tamil. So I told him, you're making it very confusing. And then he told me Malayali, and I kept on making mistakes trying to remember the word Malayali. And then I started Googling Malayali, and obviously there's a history and language and region, and probably, I don't know how many millions, 30 millions? 30 million, roughly? I asked Brother Ziyad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the people of Malayali. And may Allah protect you and the children and your families. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you in khair and give you from the khair and the goodness of the dunya and the goodness of the akhirah. One of the most beautiful things is to see brothers and sisters coming together for a very good cause, to help each other, to work. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ says. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mu'minu lil-mu'mini kal-bunyan yashuddu ba'duhu ba'dahu." The Prophet ﷺ said that believers for each other are like a building. Now we're talking about construction, trades. A building. You know, when they put the bricks, every brick supports the other brick, and they create a wall. They create a house. This is how they work. Otherwise, the brick by itself is worthless. So when you come together, this is the true value of a collective work. May Allah keep unity between you, take away every dispute, every jealousy, and when there is a collective work, it's very common that there would be some misunderstandings, there would be some issues that you need to be aware of, so you can protect your unity from every harm and every misunderstanding. And inshallah, may Allah unite you in a greater cause for you in the coming generations. The topic that the brothers chose and the sisters was very important. It is in regards to parenting and raising children in a time where this became something very challenging. I see the faces, I'm sure you're all experts, and you know better than me. However, it's more like a study together and going through certain points together. And the brothers told me you've got only 20 minutes, so I had to say, when I was preparing how to raise your children in 20 minutes. So, just like many fathers, I used to come back home with my two daughters. I come back home from work, the first thing I do probably to check notifications, and then to probably read a book, do some studies. Even if my daughter tells me anything, my conversation would be with her, hi, yes, no, how are you? And then I'll stop there. And my wife, my little brother, she worked a lot on me to give me some guidance. Because all of us need to be reminded, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and remind one another. There is no doctors remind people and no one reminds them. No. There is no chef reminds people and no one reminds him. No. So my wife, she worked a lot on me. And she started speaking to me until I realized there's something wrong. And I began a journey of learning more about this topic. And since we've got only 20 minutes, half an hour, I chose 3 important points to speak about. The summary or some of the important points that I came across. So inshallah they'll be beneficial. Before that, I would like to remind me and you of the hadith that you all, I assume, heard of, and it's the hadith of the responsibility, where the Prophet ﷺ says, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is a guardian, and every one of you will be asked, mas'ul, will be asked سؤال, there will be a question يعني at the day of judgment about those under his responsibility. Then to make it more clear, the Prophet ﷺ says, the ruler, the political leader, is a guardian. And a man is a guardian over his household. And a woman is a guardian over her husband's house and her offspring. Then the Prophet ﷺ repeated, every one of you is a guardian, and every one of you will be asked a question about his responsibility. And before we continue with this, I just want to point out something very important. Is that there is a difference between someone holding a position and having a title and someone actually fulfilling his duty that this title brings. So for example, we can have a manager, this is a position. The managing is something else. You can have a coach. Coaching is something else if you do your job properly. And same thing with parenting. You can have parents. This is biological. You get kids, you become parents biologically. But parenting is something else. So from these 3 points, inshallah ta'ala, that I want to run through, the first thing is value versus behaviors. And to the youngsters, to the youth, to our children, don't feel offended. This is just a general matter, advices for the parents. And for you, you can take it as an advice for yourself tomorrow, after 10, 15 years, when you yourself become parents as well, you get married and get kids. You can use these advices with your children, with your family, if you see them so. As a teacher, I've been teaching for many years here in Australia. And I've been meeting many teenagers, many youth. I've been having a lot of families, family issues. Some of the issues that I faced were family A, for example, without mentioning names. They had a son who was about 15 years old, and they came to me and they were like, our son was good when he was 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we didn't notice much. When he was 15, he suddenly changed. And that word suddenly, put underline under it. Family, we are very practicing family. The mom is a teacher, the dad teaches Quran, very practicing. But we found out that our daughter shares things that are not very good in the social media profile. Now I want to ask you a question. What do you think about the word suddenly here? Do you really accept that this is something that happened suddenly? Or there is a background to it? There is a reason to it? Let's ask the doctor.
I think the suddenly is from the parents' perspective. Probably they have been overlooking the gradual development of their child.
So they judged that it is something sudden, but in reality, I didn't concede that it is something sudden. It's a person's personality. It's someone's life decisions that are influenced by many things that you just don't want to consider, and he suddenly changed. So, as if someone drove in a car and he made a U-turn. This is not how human beings work. And also, for same thing applies to the second family. So what you're practicing? So what you're practicing religious? But what is the status of the children? It has nothing to do. It's not genetic. It's not wireless. Because you're religious, it goes beyond you to it extends to your children because you are religious. This is not how human beings work. Therefore, we have to look at two things that I think are very valuable. And they are to differentiate between a behavior and a value when we are raising our children from a very young age. And my youngest is 6 months, so it's too early for her. But there's another one who's older. We've been practicing on her. So behaviors, there are different between behaviors and values. And you have to differentiate between them. So you can raise your children and not fall into the mistakes that we mentioned previously, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us all. Behaviors are mainly a result of imitating. And imitating is very important. You pray and your son who is 3, 4 years old, he prays with you, your daughter prays with you, that's very good. Imitating, that's fine, this is how they learn. However, it is not fine if they 7, 8, if they 6 even, if they 10, if they 15 and they still imitating. They come to the masjid and there is no soul to the actions. So behavior is a result of imitating. However, values are a result of someone being convinced of what they have. Behaviors are mainly instructions given. Do this, don't do this. Values are a result of discussions, generally speaking. This is how values grow. We discuss, we interact, and we build values in ourselves. Behaviors are not very strong in terms of resisting what's opposing them. However, values are deep in someone's personality. He can resist, she can resist. We had many girls, I met a family, a close family to me, in Sydney, where the girl was telling her mother to pick her up about 30 meters away from the school. And she doesn't know what is the problem. However, after asking and questioning, she said, I'm too shy of my friends seeing me with hijab. In Sydney. This is a case that I witnessed, and it's one of the close families to my family. This is the behavior. If you ask her, she would say, yeah, hijab is good, hijab is something Islamic, and I like it. But because it is not instilled in her as a value, she failed to justify it herself. She was shying away from even her mother being seen with hijab. So to summarize that, values come through conversations, discussions, talking to children. And I'm going to give you some examples to you that perhaps can remind us of how the thing works. So behaviors, you might tell your child, you can't eat a lot of lollies. You should sleep early. Pray on time. Video games only on Saturdays. Sorry, boss. Now, if you want to strengthen this through a value that you would teach your child, do not eat too much lollies because such and such and such and such, and you justify it to the child. Even if he doesn't accept it, even if she doesn't accept it, but you justify it. You give them a reason. You should sleep early. Why? Because it's such and such, and this is the benefit of sleeping early. You wake up early, you can function better. It's not recommended to stay awake after Isha for any reason. Pray on time because Salah is the second pillar of Islam, and you can give him a whole lecture about prayer and the virtue of prayer. Video games only on Saturdays. Like why? Explain it. Because it destroys your focus. You can't focus anymore. It destroys your brain. Excessive usage of video games and TV and whatnot. You can justify it. You can justify it and make him convinced of the matter. And even if you're not convinced at the moment, that he would know there's a reason behind it. It's not only commands. You should hold on to your mother tongue. Speak your mother tongue at home. This is very important. Why? Sit with your kid, justify it, go through the researchers, the importance of protecting your identity and rights. And that the easier option is not always the best option. I can speak English, it's easy, but it's not always the best option. I have to hold on to my identity and protect my mother tongue. What is your mother tongue? What is the mother tongue of Malays?
Malayalam is the mouth.
Malayalam?
That is the language.
So it's hard to learn English. Is it different to Urdu a lot? Hindi? Completely different? Any language close to it? Tamil close? Okay. So to summarize, values are built deeply in someone's self and even unconsciousness. And the behaviors only create a person who is weak, he doesn't know why he's doing things, he doesn't know why he prays, why he sleeps early, why he shouldn't eat a lot of sweets, why he prays, why he goes to the masjid, why he prays Jumu'ah, he doesn't know. This is what behaviors create. However, values they create a strong personality that knows what is he doing or what's she doing. Okay, the second is about home and parents. We're going to go through it quickly, inshallah. The first principle, the first rule, is that the biggest educational facility is not the school. It's not Westburn. I asked one of the parents today, he said he's paying nearly $30,000 to one of the schools. Yeah, that's good if you can afford it, take him to a very good school. However, the greatest and the primary educational facility is the house. Therefore, a house has to be prepared. Has to be prepared for guests. You have to buy glass furniture and very fancy things. And if a child wants to walk, probably will bump into one of the tables. And if it makes the carpet dirty, the carpet is $2,000-3,000. The house primarily is for the child. Should be prepared, should be clean and tidy. You can get good furniture, but it has to be safe and suitable for the child to be educated, to learn skills. Especially nowadays, where the society, some schools in themselves become a threat for the identity of our children. The second principle, after the house being the primary place of education, the second principle is that parents are the primary source of information. You can't leave your child seeking information from other than you primarily. Because who is other than you? Probably a teacher who is agnostic or atheist, or he's ignorant. Probably a internet website that you don't know who is behind it. Probably a friend that he's not very well educated. So parents should be the primary, especially for younger kids, the primary source of information, and this puts a burden on the parents to educate themselves and update themselves, and not to rely fully on the teachers, on the market, on the school. This is not how parenting works. I was in Julia Gillard Library, which is next to Tani Central, with my wife and my daughter. And my wife got me a book called Feminist Lady. Now, we're not talking about feminism, it's a different topic. The book was called Feminist Baby, and I started looking at the pages. Feminist Baby likes to throw her clothes, to act like a boy. Feminist Baby likes to throw the kitchenware. Feminist Baby likes to take off her clothes. And they have the actual picture on the wall. And this is in a library, a place of education, where you take your child, there is colorful books, there is beautiful couches for them to educate themselves. You find these things. In the library in Warrior Plaza, I took my daughter, and they had a full section of homosexual content and whatnot. A mother was restricting the age of movies on Netflix on 7 years old. 7 years old. And then she found out that the cartoons that are made for a 7 years old contain a lot of homosexual characters. So in this case, these things need to be addressed. If the child is already understanding, then the parents, they have the duty of explaining these things to the child. What is this? He saw something in the cartoon. This is, I explained to you. There's nothing wrong with explanation. Many parents, they shy away. Don't talk about this. No, now it's the time to talk about this. To build values, to build understanding, not to shy away from these matters. So, two principles here. One, the primary place of education. It needs to be developed, prepared for a child to learn, increase the skills, feel safe, and to be suitable for the student, not for the guests primarily, even though having a guest is very important. And the second is that parents should educate themselves, update themselves, train themselves, learn, and to be the primary source of information for the kids so they can filter whatever they see suitable based on the religion, based on the identity. Being said, the society now is really corrupt and there is a lot of threat to our kids, even from the schools and the curriculum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them. The last part is something that is interesting, and I found it very interesting. Once I came back to home, and I was busy working on the laptop or preparing for a lecture, and I yelled at my daughter after she started screaming. So my wife went like, "You're being a firefighter." I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a firefighter. It's serious, I'm yelling at her. Who made me a firefighter? I never thought I'd be a firefighter. And then when she explained to me, it actually made sense. And then obviously this is, I started watching lectures, and one of the Arab psychologists, by the name of Dr. Al-Ahwazi, is one of the greatest psychologists in our time. And he's originally from Morocco, if I'm not wrong. And he's done a lot of trainings. And maybe there's a plan to obviously use him, bring him, to use his experience and utilize it for our good. So basically, three types of parents: a firefighter, and a domesticator, and a positive parenting. Which one we are? First parent is a firefighter. How would you describe this person? A father or a mother as well, who is a firefighter. This is their role as parents, as a mother, as a father. Usually fathers, to be honest. How would you describe him? What do you think his characteristics are? His contribution in the house? Any clues? What's going on? Everyone's tired. Let's go through. So a firefighter, I mentioned three main characteristics of him. Is a father or a mother who is absent even when he's present. Meaning, he's sitting in the house, he's present with his body, but his mind is in the phone, scrolling Facebook, thinking about work, probably Instagram, and he doesn't tell his wife that he has Instagram. So he's absent even when he's present. He doesn't have positive contributions to the family. Probably his only positive contribution is that he buys them food on a Saturday, they get outside. And he only involved when there is a problem. That's the main characteristic. He's a firefighter. He's into his phone, but once he hears someone yelling, he intervenes. A firefighter yells at this guy, see, slap, swear it. No, the mom, she was slapping back. So a firefighter, obviously, is a negative type of parenting that can be found in a mother and father equally, especially in a time where parents, everyone, they waste a lot of time on the phone. They lose focus on the family and the surroundings. They live this virtual life. So this needs to be considered. The second type of parents are the domesticator. Perhaps he's someone who would say, or a woman who would say, well, my daughter, she's the best. She does whatever I tell her. And if she doesn't do or tries to argue with me or discuss with me, I'll be very harsh with her until she obeys me. And now she's becoming very good. Whatever I tell her, she accepts. And even our neighbors, when they need something, they'll ask her for help. And even her brothers, when they want to eat, she gives them first. And even at the school, every teacher, she helps them, she stays in the class. And even the students, when they talk to her, she doesn't talk back. She's very nice, she's very good. No, she's not very good. The domesticator is someone who treats the kids as animals, give instruction. Do this, don't do this. I don't explain why, because I said so. What else? No conversations. Why would I talk to a 5-year-old? Why would I explain my decision for him or for her? Why? And the result of this is a child that is very submissive. If you train him to obey your command without any explanation, without any justification, then the same may apply to someone else who would do the same thing to them. A future husband, future wife, would domesticate it. The last is positive parenting. That we all wanna, try have these characteristics as much as we can, and the youngsters can consider when they grow up, inshallah. If you're 15 or 13 or 12, probably in 10 years you'll have a child. So, a positive parenting is someone who explains things to the child. She's 3 years old, so what? You can't eat sweet because this and that, and I explain to her the science behind it. You have to sleep early because this and that, and I justify things. So next time when I ask her why you can't eat sweets, she tells me because such and such and such. She will be convinced. There is an open communication environment. Kids can easily communicate and reach out to their parents, talk about things like puberty, things about teenage challenges, youth challenges. What should I do? What should I study? What should I work? There's an open environment for communication. And never is late. You can always break that wall that is made between you and your kids. And also the kids can approach the parents and break that wall that is made between them and the parents. There is a communication. Unfortunately, I've seen many cases where sisters, they get married, and boys, they get married. And they have no idea of marriage life, nothing at all. And the mom never approached them to tell them about the challenges and the biological issues that are behind these matters. The third one is that a child will raise having a critical thinking. This is very important. Otherwise, he will accept everything other people tell him as well. If he goes to the street and someone tells him, you have to do this, and he's already trained to do things without justification, then he wouldn't ask why, because he's used to it. He's obedient, he's submissive. But if you train him in a way where you justify everything to him, you engage in conversations with them or with her, then they would raise having the critical thinking where they can balance and weigh things. And also, it helps problem solving. So my son is 9, my daughter, she's 12. They came to me, I was bullied at school. That's a problem. What can you do in this case? And allow them to bring their own solution before you intervene and go talk to the principal and talk to this person and get angry or tell her, it's fine, you'll forget. No, she won't forget. She's hurt, or he is in a problem, he's being bullied. Allow them to find their own problems and solve their own issues with your instructions. And the other thing is that there should be boundaries and there should be consequences for their actions. And we'll go through this inshallah. And finally, parents, don't expect that your children will be angels. If your lifestyle is far away from, salah, masjid, and Islamic and good and healthy lifestyle, you want your child to be healthy and fit, and you eat junk food every day, doesn't work. Same thing with the intellectual aspect of your children. You want your children to be very wise and very religious. You have to live a lifestyle that is close to that claim or that thing that we're aiming to. To give an example about the boundaries, Adi, is this how you spell it? Adi, pronounce it? Keeps crying from all of this. And Abha is 9 years old, she's extremely sad, she wants her own smartphone. Like in this case, what would you do as a parent? We have to consider that there are boundaries, as I said, for the good of my children. For the good of my children. And there are also emotions. Right, there's emotions. And there are also emotions, you know, at the end of the day, they are human beings, they are robots, so they can follow everything that I tell them. So, in this case, one of the and there are three types of parents. There's a firefighter, there is a domesticator, and there is a positive parenting that will mention some of its characteristics. I hope that this was beneficial. Obviously, it was a short time, therefore, I'd recommend some books if you want to spend on this. There are very good series of books, summarized, translated in English, by Professor Abdul Karim Bakar. He's a Syrian professor, and his books were well translated into English. There are 6 books of the series that you can benefit from, inshallah ta'ala. At the end of the day, you plant properly, you plant the seed, you do your best, and the rest is on Allah Azza wa Jal. However, you have to know how to plant well, how to do your farming, and do everything on time. Therefore, it is important to always keep in mind the dua for our children. And one of the greatest supplications is to say, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Always keep your children in your dua. Don't ever do dua against them, as many of the Arab mothers do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Jazakumullah khairan. It was a pleasure being with you and seeing you all. And obviously I'll benefit from you as we go and learn more about the Malayali culture. Jazakumullah khairan. Malayali.